No, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown first overall. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I think it's always, when you're talking about the first round, I think it's always a go out and get your guy.
Come on.
Let's go. Oh, man, my heart was beating on that one.
I can just tell you, when we get down to the actual numbers and projections, that team is going to score a lot. There's a lot of fantasy goodness.
There's like 50 feet of shit and then Clyde
So forget that. I don't want to draft guys on bad teams.
Doesn't matter. They're going to figure out a way to get them the ball. Good offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is not a good offensive coordinator.
You guys are team 3 and 4. There's no point to take Stroud, right? Like, is there a point to take Stroud in a best ball format?
Did it.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another live draft coverage here on the FFPC YouTube. Tonight, we are covering a best ball tournament draft as 12 drafters are going for that $300,000 grand prize. Joining me, he hates the Cowboys, but he loves George Pickens, a best ball veteran himself. Dave Terpoilli. You read his work on Fantasy Points. You hear him on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. He has a fantasy football article of the year from the FSWA, and he wants to remind everyone the Church of Fran Brown welcomes all. Brian Drake, sir, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. I thought Terp's intro could have fit for me as well. I'm rocking my Eagles gear. You know, we don't know how long this bubble is going to keep growing before it bursts, us Birds fans. So we're rocking the Eagles gear every day.
Keep the momentum. Keep the momentum.
Bang, bang, Bird gang. Am I right? I mean, two Super Bowl champions with me tonight. Brian, I'm going to start us off. We were talking about it, on the pre-show. You obviously you started your Scott Fishbowl drafts the other day, and you kind of had a tweet, and I saw it, and blew up a little. But you took CMC first overall. The reasoning behind it, you were kind of saying, I just want to be a little bit different, maybe be a little bit of an asshole. Why not? But then you're getting all this buzz of people loving it. We kind of talked about CMC a good amount on this show, but like his range, we've seen him go top 5 in some drafts. Here in this best ball, hasn't even been drafted yet. So kind of talk me through your thought process on how you view Christian McCaffrey as maybe the ultimate wild card in drafts this year.
Yeah, no question about it. And, for folks out there who are thinking like, wow, this guy took CMC number 1 overall. Again, this is the Scott Fish Bowl. This is a 5,000 person tournament, essentially a lottery. Imagine you're playing DFS on a Sunday morning. So you're just like, whatever, I've got to be different. Now, 2 years ago, when CMC was literally like the 101 overall, before we figured out that his, Achilles and his calves were shot, he was going number 1 overall. You guys were probably doing shows here where every single night CMC's the number 1 guy overall.
Yep.
If he's healthy and he went and got the stem cell injections, and I talked to, some doctor guys, shout out my buddy Jesse Morris, I'll be drinking with at the Expo in a few weeks. Like, this is something a lot of athletes do. If he's healthy and he hits on a 49ers team that has a joke of a schedule this year, everybody's back healthy, the line's healthy, there's no Debo, so maybe he even, gets a few more touches. He's going to smash. If he smashes and he's Christian McCaffrey, you're going to win the league, or at least you're going to be different than the guys who have a roster. And you guys know all about that here in the FFPC. You want roster differentiation. So my roster at 1 with Christian McCaffrey, if he goes bananas, is going to be way different than the guy that gets him at 11 or 12 or wherever. So that's it. I'm just trying to, hit a home run here, with nobody on base. And if it hits, awesome. I'll look like a champ. If not, so what? I didn't win the league, and probably everybody else who just went chalk for 11 picks, they won't either.
I can't say any better myself.
And I mean, look at it. We didn't all that discussion, and McCaffrey in this draft doesn't even go in the
insanity so far. I mean, there we go. Great start by Team 12.
So Terp, I didn't tell you. You say that. I didn't say a word pre-show. Team 12, for the first time, I've been doing this now 4 seasons. This is the first time one of my boys is actually drafting on one of these.
Oh, wow.
Team 12 is my friend Elijah, so shout out to him. He's drafting in the 12 sub. He was excited because last year he got every draft. It was pick 7, 8, or 9. It just in this. So he was happy with 12. He thought that was spicy. He goes Genty and McCaffrey, which I'm not even saying this as like that's my guy, but that's a really good start. Those are two guys who we've seen go in the top half of drafts, like pretty consistently. Terp, I got to ask you about Jahmyr Gibbs. Team 4 takes him. You know, he's been a consistent top 6, 7 guy, but you and me haven't talked about him a lot on our shows. How much concern do you have on Gibbs returning, in this case, RB2 value with a change in offensive coordinators? David Montgomery's still there. Is there any regression from him, or do you think this is a safe top 4 pick?
I love Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm also very, very worried about David Montgomery. I'm very, very worried about the new offensive coordinator. We all know Jahmyr Gibbs is an extremely talented player. He is a league winner he's probably the first running back taken without David Montgomery in most drafts. But you're paying top value, and you're taking a top 5 pick, a top 6 pick. He's been moving up. Saquon Barkley's been moving down. And I know I'm a Philly homer, and I understand all the Barkley worry with, you know, the workload he had last year, injury risk and all that stuff. You know, is the offense going to maybe move to a more of a passing attack? I mean, I'm not going to be overweight on Barkley, but you go Barkley versus Gibbs, like, who's behind Barkley? What's stopping Barkley besides the injury bug? What's stopping Jahmyr Gibbs? David Montgomery? Do the Lions regress a little bit on offense with the new offensive coordinator? You don't know. Is Jared Goff ready to take that next step? I don't know if there's a next step for Jared Goff to take. He is what he's kind of. So, to me, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm fading Jahmyr Gibbs, but I will target some other players over him.
Brian, I got to ask you, what are your thoughts on Saquon dropping? And by dropping a bit, we mean he was kind of going top 5, but you're seeing him more in that 7-8 range. I first want to ask you, do you at all understand / agree with him dropping? And even if you don't, can you kind of maybe put me into a mindset of these players, these high stakes players who are kind of letting him fall? What is the devil's advocate to what Terp just said? What's the reasoning behind, you know, letting Saquon Barkley pass you by?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just people looking at all of those touches that he had last year and saying, we haven't seen this since LaDainian Tomlinson, that someone gets 300 plus touches, whatever it is, and then repeats as the number 1 player. It doesn't happen. So they're just betting on the fact that we don't see it. So why not say it's not going to happen again? You know, it's the same thing with every year things happen in fantasy football where we all think something's going to happen. Like, oh, we all thought Breece Hall was going to be a monster last year. And you know what? He really wasn't. We all thought Sam Laporta is going to be the best tight end, and people in this format are taking Sam Laporta as fast as they possibly could. Sam Laporta stunk, you know? So Saquon Barkley has without one guy, has the same line. There's the same weapons on the outside. Now, granted, the schedule much more difficult, and this is a best ball tournament. So I even want to talk about this with Jahmyr Gibbs because weeks, 15, 16, 17 in this, they are the money weeks. You have to be in the top 2 in 14 and 15, right? And then, you know, to win to get to 16, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's
a
a big deal. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs. They're at the Rams in week 15, home for Pittsburgh, at Minnesota. Minnesota could have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So when you're saying you're fading Jahmyr Gibbs, is he going to be amazing? Yeah, probably. But that's not a great run through the fantasy playoffs. And remember, what did the Rams do all offseason? They went out and said, we have to stop the run because Saquon Barkley gashed them twice. So all their moves in free agency, their moves in the draft, were we have to get linebackers and defensive line to stop the run. And I don't want to say, hey, all you folks who are drafting Jahmyr Gibbs 4 overall, and when he runs into that defense in week 15 and he runs for, 40 yards, I don't want to say told you so, but the Rams are going to be very good, and that Vikings defense, I think, is going to be one of the very best in the league.
The NFC is stacked. The NFC has a lot of good teams. It's a lot better than it was last year. I mean, the Rams had one of the best off seasons I've seen in a while, and obviously people say, oh, they got Devontae Adams. That's the big shiny toy, but they also added, like you said, a lot of secondary pieces on defense to take advantage of what they were gashed at last year, and that's stopping the run. And if they can figure out a way to close that up, and Devontae Adams adds another piece, the Rams could be one of the best, and if not the best team in the NFC.
So let's say Saquon Barkley doesn't set, the record for most yards in a season or any of this crazy stuff or try to run for 2,000 yards. What if he's just really good and he runs for, I don't know, 1,500 yards? What would be a great season? 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. If you get that at 7 overall, like our guy here did tonight, I mean, that's amazing.
You're happy as could be.
Yeah, that's unbelievable because, Bijan, everyone loves Bijan, right? He's great. He's kind of the shiny new toy. He's the next emerging thing. You could draft Saquon Barkley 5-6 picks later. Like, you can't tell me that with the offense and the opportunities that Barkley's going to get, that he can't easily surpass Bijan this year. Like, Barkley is set up for success because his team is the best in the NFL. Again, not just coming from a homer, and what if they don't run all those 1-yard tush pushes with Jalen Hurts? What if they say, you know what? Let's actually give Barkley the ball a little bit more. So, and then maybe there's work in the passing game as well. So I'm fine. If you want to take Barkley 7 through whatever, you're getting a value on a guy that could run for 2,000 yards.
Brian, I also saw you tweeted today and I love it, even though he's a Louisville guy.
Was it when I made fun of Michelle Tafoya? That riles some people up.
No, it was your pro Lamar Jackson propaganda, and people are taking he outperformed the MVP Josh Allen in pretty much every single category.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every advanced stat would tell you that Lamar Jackson should have been MVP last year, but MVP.
You can't give it to a guy 3 times who hasn't won a Super Bowl.
It's a narrative thing. But you were saying how people are drafting Josh Allen over him. This draft, Team 4 did it right by your book. Took Lamar Jackson as the first quarterback off the board. Obviously, it seems as though they took their QB1 early. There hasn't been a run yet. Yeah. How much higher do you have Lamar than Josh Allen, like in your own individual rankings? Like, is there a huge gap or is it tight?
No, it's very tight. Now, truth be told, so what I was doing is I had a few of these Founders 6.5% IPAs, So I just got a copy of my buddy Dwayne McFarland, who I used to do the fantasy football hustle with. I got a copy of his magazine from Fantasy Life. He's on the cover. Shout out to Dwayne. We love him. He's the guy that got me into these FFPC streets. And I was flipping through the magazine while I was in bed, and in the quarterback section was just, there's the rankings. It's they have Allen 1 and Lamar was 2. So as I'm just sitting in bed, I'm just looking at their stats. I'm like, how close was this last year? And then I look and I go, well, Lamar was better here. Lamar was better here. Well, he's better in everything. So, and then people tweet at me like, well, Allen ran for more touchdowns and over the last 4 years, he's got I don't care about that. It doesn't matter. They're both great. If you draft Lamar, awesome. And if 6 picks later, or whatever we saw here tonight, you get him as the 10th pick of the 3rd round, you take Josh Allen, he's going to be awesome too. Because let's face it, neither of them have a great receiving core. Neither of them have a go-to guy. So they are Superman. They're going to put the cape on. They're going to run a ton, and they're going to make plays. If you get either guy.
I actually think the Ravens have a way better receiving core than the Bills.
Well, you like DeAndre, the corpse of DeAndre.
I don't like DeAndre. I don't like DeAndre Hopkins.
I mean, Zay,
the tight end position. I'm a Rashad Bateman fan. I'm not,
I played Bateman so much last year. I had him on 3 teams. Yeah. God, when he came through with some of those touchdowns late in the season.
It was good. And they paid him. I'm not DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's an absolute corpse. Maybe he proves me wrong, but I don't see it. Zay Flowers is what Zay Flower is, but I don't really see anybody on Buffalo that, there's guys that you like, but is there any that really excites you?
No. And the only thing that really I wonder with the Buffalo group is how bad was that injury last year to Dalton Kincaid? Because he burned so many people. And I'm sure in this format, people got killed.
2nd round pick. He was a 2nd round pick. He murdered everybody. Him and LaPorta pretty much next to each other.
If he could really bounce back, he's somebody that could see a lot of targets, but would that then take away, from some of their other options? I mean, you go out, your big splash move is Josh Palmer. It's not like you're setting the world on fire. I know.
Don't forget Elijah Moore. Don't forget my guy.
We're talking about Elijah Moore. We're talking Elijah Moore in the 3rd round.
Just keep drafting him. 18th round every draft. Just keep clicking that button.
But Keon Coleman, our guy Shakir, there's too many mouths to feed. John Hansen and I do a podcast every week. All we talk about after each Bills game is they threw it to 75 different guys. Like that's what they do. It's not that narrow target tree like a place like Philadelphia where there's two guys, or the Rams. That's why we love the Rams. And I saw that Devontae went in the third round here. I'm all about Devontae Adams this year. Yeah. I think he's going to way outperform that ADP. And I think he's going to, frankly, have a better season than Puka Nacua. There's no chance I'd take Puka Nacua in the first round of a league. Why? When you can get a guy who's better at the goal line, who's probably going to see 10 to 12 targets a game 2 rounds later. So the guy at 10 who drafted Puka, just take Amon-Ra, I would have taken Nico Collins there. Everyone loves Drake London.
I love Brian Thomas.
Just take Devontae 2 rounds later.
I'm on the Brian Thomas bandwagon too.
Terp, if you're between those, let's go those 5 from Puka, Amon-Ra, Thomas, Collins, London. Who's your number 1 there? You're on the clock at 10. Who are you taking out of those 5?
Brian Thomas.
Okay. And Brian, you're saying Nico Collins?
Again, at that back end of the first round, it's so much stronger than it was a year ago. And I know when my guy Theo Greminger comes on with you guys in a week or so, he's been talking about that as well over at Fantasy Points. And it's look at the options you have here. I think the weakest option of all of these guys is Ashton Genty. And I listened back to your guys' way too early draft that you did in April. And Terp, you were like, I don't love rookies. I don't know about Genty and taking them that early. People, I mean, who's to say that Ashton Genty, who's to say he's going to do that much better than Josh Jacobs, who goes, 9 picks later? I mean, on a bad Raiders team, or you could have Bucky Irving on a playoff Bucks team. Okay, there's a little issue with their line we heard about
Chase
today.
Brown, Kyron Williams. Both.
Give me all those guys.
See, the thing that I always go back to with Genty that holds me back a bit, although I'm not against Genty, I am a believer because I'm also a believer in that Raiders offense being better than people think. But I go back to like the last can't miss rookie running back prospect, which was Bijan, who got drafted in like a similar, that 6 to 10 range. And he had a good rookie season, but he didn't deliver back on his value. And it reminds you that it's not a sure thing that even though the draft capital spent on those players, it doesn't necessarily always guarantee touches. But just with Pete Carroll's track record, the Chip Kelly, the speed offense they're going to be running, I'm a believer in Genty, especially. I do agree. Like we've seen some drafts where Genty goes before Saquon. Someone goes out and gets their guy, puts Genty at 5, 6. Here at 12, I'm comfortable with that. And I do think he provides more upside than every name drafted after him except for Devon Achane, who I think Devon Achane very well could finish as running back 1 overall. That's within his range of possibilities.
I would take Devon Achane over Jahmyr Gibbs season long.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. Clip that for the social. Clip it. Well, I'm saying I'll add on to that. Ashton Genty, if you're taking Ashton Genty, who we've never seen do anything, and he plays on a horrific Raiders team, who will be better, but again, in a tough division, they're still the 4th best team in that division. You're taking him ahead of Christian McCaffrey, who we've seen be like the best player in fantasy football. Devon Achane, who when Tua was healthy, averages the most points at the running back position last year. JT, who's been, a top running back. Derrick Henry, future Hall of Famer. There's a lot of people we're putting behind Ashton Genty who has done nothing. Again, and how good's this line in Vegas? How many opportunities is he really going to get? Is he going to have to be Saquon last year and break a bunch of 60-yard touchdowns? I don't know. If he finished the year with 6 rushing touchdowns, would that shock anybody?
Nope.
But rookie running backs are fun, boys. They're just so fun.
I agree with everything Brian said. Genty and Puka are like the 2 guys in the first round. I'm not fading people in the first round. To me is silly. Especially if you're a volume player like myself. I think it's just silly to do. You got to get a little bit of exposure just in case you're wrong.
And the one time that you do fade someone, it burns you every time. That's how it works.
It always does. It always kills you. Genty, Puka, and St. Brown are the 3 guys that I'm like lower on compared to the field.
Terp, I got to ask you.
Achane, Thomas, and McCaffrey over all of them.
I feel like, Terp, when you really get in these best ball streets, I know you've kind of started, but you really ramp up here soon. Do you pushing up Achane too could, I'm sure, net you some interesting builds too that could, diversify the portfolio. But Terp, I want to ask you, if you're in this draft, I'm going back to kind of those first couple of rounds, you're looking at this board. You're a proud, like, piss and yellow believer.
Mhm.
Are you loving seeing this, like, boards develop, and it's kind of been consistent where it's just the running backs are going heavy, and then you see this third round, just a wealth of receivers with, like, I mean, Rashee Rice. We've talked about Tyreek Hill a lot. Marvin Harrison's getting buzzed. We just talked about Devontae Adams. Like, there's so many dudes here who very well could find themselves in the first round next year, going the third round, just a byproduct of running backs getting pushed up. So from your best ball brain, you're looking at this board. I'm just assuming, but I want to confirm, like, you're loving seeing this because that probably fits into your preferred strategy.
Very much excited about the way the boards are falling this year. Like, I look at JSN, who I'm like probably even with the field on this year, to get to where your buddy took him, whether you like him or not, it's a great spot. It's literally perfect because he's going pretty much in the mid-third round in most of these drafts. So you look at some of these builds and how teams are doing it, like Team 3. I
was going to bring him up.
I think this build's silly. I just think that you got a great start. Yeah. Top 3 can't really. I don't know if there's a better top 3 in the top, in the top all 12 teams. But I think you're getting a little too cute with the format. You're taking Liquorie, you're taking Hawkinson. They're probably third targets on both their teams. And I know the FFPC format where you're getting the extra points. I get all that stuff, but you passed on DJ Moore. You passed on Jameson Williams. You passed on, other players that, Ted McMillan, guys like that.
You drafted a bench player in your top 5 picks because only 2 of those guys were. Well, no, you got. You
can start all 3, but you have
to start all 3 with the 2 flexes, right? But
Laporta is such an unknown after last year. Like, that could be a guy. It's very possible that we could look at Sam Laporta as like a major one-hit wonder. Not comparing him to Kyle Pitts, but like,
yeah, I mean, he also has just so many like things that are against him. Like, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, you look at St. Brown, you look at Jameson Williams, who is, the hot name this year. He's moving up draft boards.
Yeah, he's
what makes fine. It's really hard for me to get a board. Like, Sam Laporta is a guy that, again, I think the fade word is crazy in some regards, but he's just a guy that I just don't think I'll be drafted much. I mean, could it burn me? Of course. Could it burn me in this format? Of course. But there's just so many things that have to go right for him to pay off where he's being drafted compared to, let's just say, an Evan Ingram or David Njoku or guys like that who are getting drafted 2-3 rounds later. To me, the value, if you're telling me I can take DJ Moore versus Sam Laporta, whether you like DJ Moore or not, it just, I don't think I could ever take Laporta over DJ Moore, ever.
I got to ask, Brian, if you could take a gander at Team 1 over there. You like in Terp tweeted out, like, hey, if you're not stacking, I'm going to be coming for you on this stream. You got to be a big fan of investing in that Bengals offense, Chase Brown, and then they get Joe Burrow. I just want, in general, I've been intrigued to hear. I know most people are pro, but your stance on stacking and then specifically Team 1's build so far between the 3 Bengals and then Garrett Wilson and J-Mo.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to stack, you're going to stack a team with a bottom 5 defense and elite playmakers, and that's exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals are. And if you look at their playoff schedule here in this format, they're home for Baltimore in Week 15, then they're at Miami, and then they're home for Arizona. So potential, I don't know how much that Baltimore game could shoot out. You never know. But at Miami and Arizona, those could be bonanzas, those final 2 weeks. So if Chase Brown stays healthy too, I mean, he was so good last year.
So good. That was going to be a guy last year.
Yeah.
That was one that we nailed.
Chase Brown, no matter what.
Insane.
That's a guy who's
every time. Anytime Zach Moss got drafted over him, me and Terp had a conniption on stream. It was just insane.
Wow.
And there was a long time in the summer where it was just ugly. It was like they were both going right next to each other. It was like,
it was so obvious.
Zach Moss.
Crazy work. Anyway, Brian, continue your thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I think guys like Bucky Irving and Chase Brown, who came on last year, who there were questions about, and people were like, can they hold up? Are they big enough? I mean, can they take the full workload and distance themselves from the guys behind them? I think if they solidify themselves as top, 5 to 7 running backs in the NFL right now, those are rosters that can really push for a championship in fantasy football, not just best ball, but just in general, because they're so good and their teams trust them so much. But back to Team 1 here. Yeah, Jamar Chase. I don't like when there becomes a consensus on anything. And when I see everybody and their brother taking Jamar Chase #1 overall, and they go, "Oh, he's got to be the pick." Why? Like, who's to say he goes out and has these 50 burgers that he had last year? You know, what if he gets a little nicked up? Like, I like having a little variance out there. Who's to say CeeDee Lamb can't be the wide receiver 1? Who's to say that, Amon-Ra or Nico, any of these guys? So I don't know. I saw a guy call me a boomer in the chat earlier, but
so you did get called a boomer in the chat. I didn't throw that one up out of respect to you.
Oh, screw it. Bring the guys on here. I love it. But hey, it's a good start. I like the Garrett Wilson pick, by the way. I think Garrett Wilson is going to see an insane. He's not going to see the targets that Malik Neighbors saw across the locker room last year for the Giants, but he's going to see so many targets on this Jets team. It's not going to be funny. I think there's going to be a lot of folks that are wishing that they took Garrett Wilson maybe in the second round. Wasn't he going like end of the first, early second last year?
Yep. Burned everybody.
He burned everybody, but he's really good. I'll bet on talent again, and they're going to have a quarterback who's there the entire season, we hope. And here's the bottom line. Who else are they going to throw to? Nobody. They got nothing.
Literally nobody. They have nothing. There's not even like a guy on that team like, oh, you look at the tight end, who's a rookie, he's got some potential, but they don't have another guy. Corley, Alan Lazard, like there's nobody that like there's even any good on the outside. So it's like he should get the most targets in the league.
You talk boomer. I'm on ourlads.com looking up depth charts here. That's how old I am.
All right. That's old, man.
I'm a fan of our lads. And
let's look at the squad here. The Jets are rolling out behind Garrett Wilson. Josh Reynolds, okay, one of the losses. He's Always Sunny in Philadelphia characters. Alan Lazard, yes, he's still alive. He's there.
Disgusting.
Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, who I did draft in a couple of rookie drafts. Malachi Corley. This is terrible.
It's embarrassing.
He's going to get 130 targets.
If not more, like especially if they're bad, like he could get every target at the end of the game, and that's what we love in fantasy football.
Well, let's spin this forward then. Have you been seeing a lot of Mason Taylor love because of it in this format? Because again, who else are they going to throw to?
No, nothing.
I see. I got a guy in the chat talking Mason Taylor.
Yeah, good old Sean Green.
I don't mind Mason Taylor. I mean, because his price isn't crazy.
Don Green might come out of retirement for the Jets. Who knows?
I see my first culprit for non-stacking, so I'm going to call him out because I said I would. Right. So Team 9, right? Really, really nice start. Jake McBride, fan of that. Nico Collins, we all know, like him. Devontae Adams, nothing wrong with that. Taking Jalen Hurts, great. You had Devonta Smith. It was right there. Just click the button. James Conner's a good player. I get it. You could tell me you could start with Trey McBride, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, and George Pickens. I know you don't have a running back yet. I get it. But I'd be doing backflips up and down the street right now to have that start.
Do you think that's what it was? Is he's like, oh shit, I don't have a running back, and because he took Jalen Hurts in the 4th round, he's like, oh my god, I gotta get a running back. With that build, Travion Henderson looks way better. RJ Harvey looks way better in his build. And I'm not hating on James Conner, but we all talk about the red flags with, Saquon Barkley potential. It's the same with James Conner. Is Trey Benson potentially going to emerge this year? That offense could improve even more in Arizona if, Kyler Murray gets his head out of his where and figures out a way to get, the guys the ball like Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride more often than they were last year. So to me, it's just like, you look at that and you just, I don't get it. I don't understand the pick. He's got a chance later. We'll see if
he has a chance later, but that chance needs so like you talk about the tree in Philadelphia. Dallas Goedert, we can mention him. You need so many things to go wrong for him to pay off. He's a guy that's hard to click. Him, love the talent, but he's just hard to click.
What I mean is, what if he comes back around and he loads up on a couple of more Texans and he gets Stroud later? Maybe he gets Dak and he gets my guy Turd Ferguson.
And Dak is as much as it's painful to say, Dak's my favorite quarterback this year. That's not.
We're too much alike. We're singing
it's
this.
Painful to say.
Hammy, but
I know, but that team should throw the ball 8,000 times. I mean, because they don't have a single guy in the running back who belongs in the NFL.
Oh, Absolutely. If
I
it's
mean,
best ball, draft Dak as your backup.
He's
If you're in
free
a home
and,
league,
like,
draft Dak as your backup. Because
waiting
you'll
on
end up
quarterback
trading
this
him
year just
later.
makes so much sense. It just makes so much sense. And it's hard to say because these top 5 guys, even Mahomes, who a lot of people, I know we had Nelson on last week, who was extremely high on Patrick Mahomes, making with those 3 studs on the outside, and obviously Kelsey, taking that, get out of their heads out of their butt that they were last year, and really taking that next step offensively and airing the ball out more. But quarterback's so deep, and you could literally wait. We talk about Justin Fields. We talk about Dak Prescott. We talk about, plenty of other guys who are, going to be drafted here soon. Names I'm not going to mention, but that make a ton of sense. It's hard passing on Jaden Daniels. It's hard passing on Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It's hard passing on Joe Burrow, especially if you have Higgins and Chase. But, man, quarterback's deep.
Brian, I got to ask you, because me and Terp, I believe, if I'm factoring in right, we haven't had a show since the trade that sent Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh. So Jonnu, yeah, his price has stayed pretty stable to what it was. Maybe some slight slippage, but I mean, here goes tight end 8 at the start of the 7th round. Where were you at on the fantasy impact of Jonnu reuniting with old friend Arthur Smith and moving to Pittsburgh?
Well, let's remember, it's like he set the world on fire either. Well, when he was with Arthur Smith, people look at and they act like he was like the greatest tight end in the world. I mean, really, we should say he just left the best situation he was ever in, because he was killing it last year. And now you go and there's Pat Freiermuth who's there, who's very good, and they're not going to want to throw the ball all that much. I mean, okay, is he maybe the second, third option on a mediocre Pittsburgh team? I have no interest in Jonnu Smith. I mean, yeah, do you want to get a little exposure to him in case, God forbid he does blow up? But I mean, you see 2 picks later, Mark Andrews went. Give me Mark Andrews over Jonnu Smith every day of the week. Evan Ingram went a couple of picks before him. I like Evan Ingram in Denver more than Jonnu Smith. So I'm very fine with letting somebody else take Jonnu Smith.
Terp, I want to ask you, I had a question in mind. I was going to ask you something important, and it's just completely slipped my memory.
It happens.
No. Here's what it was. Round 6, 7 receivers were drafted. One of them is not like the others. I want to see if you're on the same wavelength as me.
Chris Godwin.
Correct. It's still insane to me that Chris Godwin's going with, Chris Olave, Kellen Moore's there. I know he's 1 concussion away from being out of the NFL, but if he can stay healthy,
opportunities there.
Jalen Waddle,
Tyler Shuck might be a knockoff Bo Nix. We don't know that. I'm not sitting there saying he's going to be, but
he's not.
Who said Bo Nix was going to be good last year? Who really thought he was going to turn out the way he is? What
Sean Payton. Sean Payton thought that way.
Well, Kellen Moore's no slouch.
Travis Hunter went a pick before Chris Godwin. That's ridiculous to me. Ridiculous.
Ridley. Basically, my point is Olave, right? We discussed it. Pickens. We just talked about Dak in that Cowboys offense. It's a complete lack of run game. His big play upside there. Waddle. I know he hasn't been putting.
Let's rank them. It's fun. Let's rank them. All those receivers in order. I'll start.
I like the running backs in the 6th round better than the ones in the 5th.
I 100% agree with you, except for David Montgomery, which I just can't draft the guy. I just can't. I mean, I get it, but in best ball a little bit more managed, I could just never click that button.
I think it's Hunter and Ridley are my top 2.
Hunter. I love Hunter, but he's not. So to me, it's Pickens number 1.
Yeah, shocker.
Ridley number 2. Hunter, Waddle, Addison, Olave, Godwin.
Is Olave that low because
you're injuries? That low on Godwin?
It's just
to me, it's a full fade. It's the injury,
entirely the injury. When you're coming off,
and there's also a ton of guys there. I mean, Evans, you got
his leg was mangled. He had tightrope.
Mecca, you got.
I just don't see
new offensive coordinator.
I just don't see Godwin returning to anything nearly resembling.
Is he going to play the slot? Are we sure he's going to play the slot? Is that?
I think he's going to.
Yeah,
I'm just.
Yeah, he'll play
full
the slot.
fade. There's rare guys who are full fades for me. I am not touching Chris Godwin because of the injury. Next year we'll rediscuss
where he's being drafted. If he starts falling a little bit, if there's some reports that come out that maybe, but where he's being drafted around Addison, Ridley, Hunter, Pickens, Waddle, Olave, I'm taking every single one of them.
How about Calvin Ridley, the final pick of round 6, who may have the highest target share of any of the receivers drafted in that round? I mean, some of these guys are wide receivers too on their own team. And Calvin Ridley
pick this year.
You mentioned like Devontae Adams.
A million targets.
You mentioned Devontae Adams, right, as a veteran. Like Devontae Adams is getting drafted earlier last year than he is this year, even though his situation, like, and unlike some like the DeAndre Hopkins, the Amari Coopers, who are like, oh, they're washed. Devontae Adams is still churning along as an elite receiver.
Yeah.
And now he's going and he's going to be playing the Cooper Kupp role. And one can assume in that Sean McVay offense, he's going to be a perfect fit. Mm-hmm. Calvin Ridley is kind of the same way in that, he's getting drafted later than he was last year, despite his situation improving. Like, I mean, Will Levis and Mason Rudolph were horrendous last year.
Pour one out for my boy Will Levis. I love that guy.
Dude, I do love that guy, but just
terrible.
not an NFL quarterback.
No.
But Ridley, and some of Ridley had his faults, right? And he's had his faults with drops, but man, like Cam Ward's going to be an improvement.
Oh yeah.
So I'm
Tyler
surprised.
Lockett's no slouch. I mean, he's gonna. I'm not sitting here saying he's a superstar, but he's going to be a veteran guy that will command some targets
and also in a best ball format. Ridley has explosive ability still. I know he's like 28, 29 now, but like the dude is going to have
top
some game
3 favorite click of mine so far. Calvin
and I feel as though he's even better in best ball than he is in just standard, because I think
if Cam Ward's good, oh my God! I mean,
even if Cam Ward's just fine, I think it will be. Yeah. Ridley will be better.
And people aren't talking enough about how upgraded that offensive line in Tennessee is. Mm-hmm. They've got a great coach there now in Tennessee, and you look at Kevin Zeitler's there, and they drafted Skoronski a couple of years ago, and it's kind of a little hit or miss there at the left tackle position with Dan Moore, but that's a good offensive line now, and he's going to see a boatload of targets. Sleeper guy. Maybe it's more of a dynasty take. Maybe the last round. I know we don't love talking about guys that haven't been picked yet, but who knows if he gets drafted. I love Elick Ayamanor out of Stanford. Okay. I got to see the kid. I got to see him play in person. He played up here against Syracuse and just ate them up. And he's
sickening, by the way. Sickening that Stanford has to play at Syracuse. Screw college football and the NCAA and conference realignment.
Go watch. Go watch the great 30 for 30, a Requiem for the Big East. That's all you need to know. But this guy,
good book by Dana O'Neill too. The Big East, another good one.
He is a poor man's Tet McMillan.
Ooh,
Ayamanor. To me, he's very good.
I was shocked he fell in the draft. It was a surprise to me.
He's great.
He was getting some early second round buzz early on in the draft cycle, and then he just completely dropped. Where does that leave you with Tony Pollard? Some Titans love. Where are you between the offensive line improving? He put together a really good season on a shitty team, and he's going as RB30. Do you think that should be pushed up a little bit, or are you kind of fine at that price point?
That's the beauty of it. He was on a terrible team last year. People think he's always hurt. That offensive line's much improved. You've got real quarterback play. We think, again, we don't know how great Cam Ward's going to be, but this is a much more, it seems, competent organization now going forward. And if you can get a guy at RB30 who, I'm trying to pull up some of his stats here. Where in the hell was he last year? I mean, this is a guy who's really explosive, can do it in all 3 phases. You're getting a steal right there at 30. I love it. So, I love it. I know Justin Travis Hunter when they play against each other. Shout out to you. How do you pronounce that? The Sharkus?
Yeah, the Sharkus.
The Sharkus.
Well, that's the other thing.
The Shark US. I don't know.
Let's talk Travis Hunter here because he mentions it. Yeah. And I was no fan of Colorado and the hype that team got because of Dion. The team wasn't very good. Whenever they played any sort of Division I opponent that wasn't,
they got whipped.
They got their asses kicked. Every ball that you see Travis Hunter catching, he's jumping over a defender. He's going through a defender. He's catching a short ball that was 10 yards underthrown. Like, I don't know how good of a route runner this kid is. Is he a freak athlete? You're damn right. I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, I think he's a better corner than he is a wide receiver. I don't know why they want to play him at wideout all the time, but I don't think he's going to come in and start setting the world on fire at wide receiver. I never would pick him to be, especially a season-long team or when I'm trying to win all this money. No way. Not where you have to take him for a kid who's going to play what, maybe half the receiver snaps. You got to be in both meeting rooms. It doesn't nobody plays all the snaps in a game. It does not happen, folks. There's a reason for that. They're going to find where they want him and what he's better at and what they don't have to coach him up on as much, which is probably going to be corner, and that's where he's going to play. Travis
Hunter is why Brian Thomas is falling down draft boards. Brian Thomas should be going higher than he is. To me, I'm happy with that because I'm a Brian Thomas guy. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm fading Travis Hunter. The talent, the coaching staff, they're going to be arrogant about it, in my opinion. They're going to try everything possible, especially early in the season, to try to get him as many touches as possible. Travis Hunter is going to be a person, probably the number one person in all drafts this year, that we're going to look back at the end of the year and go, people are going to be like, oh, man, I was so right on him. And the other people are going to be like, oh, man, that was a disaster. And
I already got called the worst guest you've ever had on the show in the chat. So I'm doing my job.
Travis Hunter like brings like the true like grit
scenes for you.
Like people buy into that hype, and the Colorado hype was no joke. It was surrounded, but in big games, Colorado. I bought into it early on when Deion first started. I'm like, oh, I'm on the Colorado bandwagon. Let's go. Deion's going to revolutionary, but it started to become a sideshow. The talent, Travis Hunter is an extremely talented kid. The number one talented kid in the draft, in my opinion, all that stuff. But the sideshow everything got caught up in it. Those guys were like celebrities, and realistically, they never earned anything. They never went out there and beat anybody. They pretty much got whipped. I still remember that Oregon game last year. They went in there, talked all that, and then got literally bent over and whipped. It was embarrassing. So I like Travis Hunter. Jacksonville clearly believes on him. They're going to do everything possible in the season to try to make it a thing. Could it be a thing? Of course it could be a thing. Could it surprise everyone? Of course. I don't think he's a guy who can full fade because there's going to be that spike weeks and stuff like that are going to be there with Travis Hunter. But there's also going to be weeks when he gets one catch for 10 yards.
Also, I just want to say, in response to cutscenes for you saying Brian's the worst guest, you hate him or love him, you're watching. Exactly. And then number two, there can't be a worst. I mean,
he didn't say worst. It was grammatically incorrect. He said worst guest. So maybe he's saying.
I love when people call it the chat, man. Nothing gets me more tanked up.
So maybe he's saying there could be worse guests. I mean, next week it will not be.
There will be next week. There will be no worse show than me trying to rock a solo analysis of now it's the Big Gorilla. I think it was 2 years ago. I'm just.
Oh man, I remember watching that after the fact. I forget why it had to happen, but like
I was in
draft coverage yourself.
Yeah, it sucked. I'm just sitting there
man.
Chat, like help me out. Like what am I doing?
I did it once when you lost power for like I don't know how long. It's like, all right, I'm just talking to myself here. It's like, hey, Juwan Jenkins is a great pick.
Let's go to the callers. All right, who's on the line?
It's like
shit. We don't have any callers. What's next?
Nothing will beat though, Brian. I bring it up. Last year we had Howard Bender on, and Howard we're going along smooth. It was just me and Howard. Obviously, I talked to Howard before in Vegas, but nothing. And I'm like watching the board. I'm not seeing the chat. All of a sudden, Howard goes, "You're calling me an idiot." And he just starts going at this dude in the chat, like all love, but it was fantastic. But I was like, whoa, like what's going on here? Like I'm scrambling to try to just move on. He was.
That's the fun part is you got it, and that's the beauty of podcasts and radio and everything. You got to have a little personality. That's why I love doing my show with John Hansen. And for years and years and years, every show I've ever done is kind of just me teeing up really smart guys, getting their opinion, and kind of keeping the show rolling, right? But when you can also interject some personality, that's what people want to come back to. When you watch like the ship chasing shows and Peter Overzet and guys like that who are really funny and they have a great personality. Yeah. So that's what brings people back. Like it's just boring if you're just sitting here just like, all right, Xavier Worthy with a 5th pick of the 4th. Nobody cares. Like we can see that. Like people want to be entertained and they're hanging out and they're watching. So much love to you, brother.
I love trolls in the chat. They make it more fun. I just have a question real quick. Steve G
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's team 1.
He's
I
team
think
1.
he's drafted
Yes.
in this. I have nothing negative to say about your team tonight. You've done very well.
Steve always comments how he wants you to beat up on his team.
I don't have anything negative to say about it. What's there negative to say about it? I mean,
I don't know if
Steve
it's a
pays
kink,
women on
a
the
fantasy
highway.
kink, but
I'm an
Step on
ETN
balls.
guy. I'm a DeAndre Swift is the guy I'm coming around on. I love Calvin Ridley. Jameson Williams is one of my highest known players. We talked about Garrett Wilson. You know, if you're going to do Chase and Brown, you're getting Burrow. Travis Etienne, I'm an Etienne stan. So to me, you're a top 2 team in the league so far.
Can we
I'm
ask?
trying to find something negative, but
Can I ask you guys a question about DeAndre Swift? Like,
yeah,
if so, he's on this team that's got a ton of talent. We know they, the kind of pushing all the chips in. They're trying to take a little pressure off the quarterback. We've got this great offensive mind. We've seen what he's done in other places, and we know that the amount of catches and targets, at least, that he's had in this same offense. Like, why is DeAndre Swift a 7th round pick? Is it just because he's DeAndre Swift? I feel like if he was anybody
every
else,
opportuntion he got, he's failed.
Yeah,
I think
it's a reputation-based thing for him. It's just, there's also probably concerns of, is Roschon going to be the David Montgomery role? And
but it was Roschon. What's Roschon ever done to prove that he's a David Montgomery guy? The fear with DeAndre Swift to me, and the only fear is that they add somebody like I don't know, Antonio Gibson, or like, I'm trying to think of random names that could pop up that like could get in there and just mess things up a little bit. You know, maybe a bigger name like a Travis Etienne.
ETN's the guy that everyone thinks is going to get traded. I think Dallas makes a ton of sense for ETN as like a right before training camp kind of trade. Or
ETN in Dallas. I mean, he probably moves up 3 or 4 rounds.
ETN, all the smoke coming out of Jacksonville, where they're like, Cohen's hyping up ETN, just feels like we're trying to boost his value anyway. Like, I think it's hard for me to imagine him coming with 3, right? Tuden, Bigsby, and ETN.
ETN and Bigsby are former regime guys. Now, Tuten and LaQuint, shout out again, Syracuse, are the new regime's guys. Allen and Tuten can 1,000% replicate what ETN and Bigsby stinks. Okay, we all wanted Bigsby to like be this waiver wire wonder last year for us, but I mean,
had a couple games. Had this going
0% Bigsby.
Yeah, I mean, he can't catch. He's kind of a one-trick pony, but you hope he falls into the end zone. So we'll see. I got a feeling he's going to get moved, and maybe it's Dallas and people who are. Where did Javonte get drafted yet? Probably not.
Well, I mean, he shouldn't get drafted at all because he's.
I think Jaden Blue is like the earliest drafted Dallas running back.
Jaden Blue is the only guy that I would. I mean, okay, let me take that back. Where Miles Sanders is being drafted, I think he makes sense. Like, he's free in drafts. Like, if you're going to take a shot on these guys, take a shot at the cheapest one. Jaden Blue never did it in college. I mean, he was like an afterthought and, had some moments, but we don't know if that's going to translate. He's real tiny. We've talked to a bunch of people who don't like him that are Texas guys. I mean, to me, it's Miles Sanders. But if Dallas goes into the regular season with these running backs, everybody, I said it the other day, George Pickens, Lamb, Ferguson, Prescott, they're going to throw the ball a ton. If they don't, then this coaching staff might not make it a year, because their equalizer is Prescott, Pickens, Lamb, Ferguson. They should throw the ball as much as possible, because these running backs, to me, they're just undraftable. Jaden Blue, if you want to take a shot here and there for maybe a lightning in the bottle, but if you're drafting Javonte Williams, it's like, why? Like, what? He's terrible.
Team 4 just takes him right there as you're saying that. Also, Sean pointing out, Sean Green, our guy in the chat, pointing out Team 9 snipes Dak Prescott.
No, he didn't. Not in best ball, he didn't. He has George Pickens. He's allowed to.
Yeah, but I think his point was Team 9 with the CD and Ferguson, was definitely gunning for Dak there.
And he definitely panicked. He panicked a little bit. Not that Caleb Williams is a bad pick in any way, but, I mean, there's a lot of teams that are Team 2, for a perfect example, started off really, really good. Kyler Murray, I don't know where that pick fits in with the team build, but fine. Justin Herbert makes a ton of sense. McConkey, that's a great value. Let me look at some of these other stacks. I said I was going to torch people. McCarthy with Jackson or Jefferson, that's good. Mahomes with Rice, nothing wrong there. Lamar with Andrews, that's good. Purdy with Jennings, good. Caleb Williams naked. I don't really know if I love that one. Bo Nix by himself, you can get away with if you're going to do it. Mayfield with Evans, Hurts obviously with nobody, who we already talked about. Dak with Pickens, he made up for it. Josh Allen is, if you're going to take Josh Allen, you're probably going to not take anybody, maybe Shakir. Justin Fields is probably somebody you can get away with going by himself.
He has Brees.
Your boy, Jaden Daniels.
Let me give you some insight. My boy Elijah, diehard Patriots fan, has been talking about Drake May all day. How he's going to take it. He had Diggs. He had Travion Henderson. I know he should have taken Drake May there at 10:01. That was definitely the strategy. He was hoping Drake May would
looking at that, like Cooper Kupp, barf. I mean, Cooper Kupp is, has been great in fantasy football in the past, but it's not the past anymore. And that offense in Seattle is going to be gross, and I'm not a Darnold guy, and I just don't think they're going to run the ball a ton. So you had the option there to, especially in best ball. Again, this is not a managed league; it's totally different. So you have Henderson, you have Diggs. Clicking that Cooper Kupp button, or Loveland. Loveland's fine, but you could have got Loveland and May, and been in a way, way, way better shape.
Also, question: if you guys were in Team 12 shoes, which Team 12 is my friend drafting, do you take McLaurin over JSN there with Jaden Daniels, even with the contract uncertainty, but you want to get that step?
I don't care about the contract uncertainty. That
he'll be there. Where else is he going to be?
He's going to be.
They're
not going to trade him.
My point is, he's not leaving, but I'm saying you've seen these guys coming with.
I take McLaurin over JSN just because of I just stack. If you're not going to do that, that's okay. It's not like Jaden Daniels can get you there without McLaurin, but I would try to mix in maybe a Debo or mix in an Ertz or something later. There's some deep guys if you really want to get crazy, Ben Sinnott type of situation. In this format.
He can salvage. There's ways he can.
De'Ami Brown, one of these guys.
Yeah.
He had a really, really good draft so far. Personally, I would have took Devon A-Chain over at Genty, and I have no problem with the Henderson and Harvey pick. I mean, people are going to say he's too running back crazy, and I get that. But
for the record, he did text me. He wanted it to be made aware that those were. He doesn't know how it happened. Those were auto picked, and he doesn't know how. But he doesn't.
I just gave him credit. And you can't give him credit for an auto pick.
He doesn't. They were in his queue, so something happened and it took his queue, guys. But
so again, it is best ball. He's got JSN. He's got Cooper Kupp here. You'd think as his second quarterback, now he's got to take Darnold, right?
Yeah, I think you got to push Darnold
at this point. But I mean, with that offense, I mean, do you really want Sam Darnold? I mean, you got to hope Sam Darnold goes off.
Are you a Kubiak believer there to help that offense, Brian, or are you not buying it?
Well, I mean, listen, everyone sees what he did for 2 whole games a year ago, but
greatest 2 games ever.
Yeah. So can he get the most out of this offense? Sure. But again, it's a guy that bounces around a lot. It's like, maybe in theory it is better than in practice, because it's like, well, why haven't you just stuck and been, a great OC in one spot for 10 seasons and, gotten all these multiple head coaching jobs or anything? It doesn't happen for Clint Kubiak. So I just don't know if I want to get tied to the Seattle offense that much, because as much as everyone's saying they want to run the ball, I mean, now you've got 2 wide receivers and you're forced to take the quarterback. But I get, if you want to take Jaden Daniels naked, I'm not against that, because he is that damn good. But I see the point of taking McLaurin there, even though I don't like McLaurin at all. Not with Debo there. Debo's going to eat up all those screens that McLaurin had last year.
Yeah,
and McLaurin, I think
McLaurin was my number 1 receiver last year.
Yeah,
I don't feel the same way this year.
No,
he's being drafted. There's just, I still think he's going to get there, but is he going to pay off where he's being drafted? I don't know. Like, there's guys that I just like a little bit more 2-3 rounds later that I think could put up the same production.
He's older. If he's running a lot more of these deep routes here, does Jaden Daniels just take off and run? Because so much of what he did was through the screen game last year. I think you could find better guys there. I'd take old man Mike Evans over him, because we know Mike Evans is probably going to get 1,000 yards and double-digit touctouchdowns.
Yeah. Mike Evans is just going to keep showing up every year. His ADP is going to be slipping because he's going to get older and older, and he's going to just keep churning out the exact same season over and over again. Just it's like clockwork. I want to ask you, Brian, real quick.
Please.
This was a guy Terp can attest to. I mean, we had seen Terp. I'm pretty sure Luther Burden had like some 8th, 9th round shares.
He was
like,
up there for a while. He's not there anymore.
And he's now goes at the 1107. This is a guy. I sound like Tony Romo. Now here's a guy. Luther Burden, I absolutely.
Here's a guy, a producer just slipped me a note about.
Yeah, but like I'm just a huge fan of him at that value because like we still aren't fully aware of the roles Odunze, Moore, Burden are going to be playing in that Ben Johnson. It's very like Burden was a new like coaching regime pick. You know,
Sure.
DJ Moore and Odunze were not. Burden obviously disappointed his junior year at Missouri, but his sophomore year was one of the best receivers in the country. And he very well could get that slot role in the Ben Johnson offense that we crave. I just want to see if you're kind of on the same page with me that you'd be buying Luther Burden as somewhere in the wide receiver 50 range. I think that's excellent value. Like I know there's a ton of mouths to feed, but I'm looking at like Egbuka over him is crazy to me. Even Pittman over him. I'm not taking Darnell Mooney. I think in a best ball, like Cooper Kupp and his injury troubles, I'm taking a flyer on Luther Burden over him too.
I'll say this. I don't love Luther Burden.
Okay.
I feel like it was same thing I just said about Terry McLaurin, a screen merchant in college at Missouri, scoring a lot of touchdowns that way. There's so many mouths to feed in that offense. And do I trust Caleb Williams? Absolutely not. Mr. Happy Feet that's getting sacked left, right, and every other which way. I just don't see this kid coming in as a rookie and becoming the alpha in that offense. Would I take Michael Pittman over him? Yeah, I would, because Michael Pittman's, in my mind, the number one in the Indy offense. If they get semi-competent quarterback play from Daniel Jones, Luther Burden's now got to beat out Colston Loveland, who I guess is their tight end. We all forgot about Cole Kmet, I guess. But Colston Loveland went a couple of picks before him in this very draft. So there's too many mouths to feed. There's no way he's going to outshine DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. But if you want to take him as a 50th wide receiver off the board, again, who cares at that point?
The price point is great now compared to, 8th round.
Much better now than what it was.
Yes. Yeah. I'll give you that. But do I think he's going to have, and it's best ball, can he have a couple bike weeks? Of course. But in like a redraft or a managed league, something like that, do I want to have anything to do with Burden? Not at all.
As much as I'd love to defend my friend, I don't know what we're doing in rounds 11 and 12.
Panicking. He's
panicking. What is the ABV on his IPA?
Oh, he's panicking. That's what it is.
Oh man.
He's worried.
It's really fun when it's your friend making shitty picks, because then
that's what happens in these drafts. People get they see these runs at quarterbacks, especially in these 9, 10, 11 rounds. And if you're sitting at the ends, you just get panicky a little bit. Like Bryce Young and Michael Penix, nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, but you got to take Darnold with your Bills.
Yeah, where's Darnold?
But you also have Geno Smith out there with Jacoby Myers. You could have not
and
Genti.
And Genti. He passed on 2 stack opportunities.
And
you're right. That should have been Geno and Darnold if you wanted to take it, which you didn't have to take.
Or Geno and a tight end, because you only have Loveland, I believe.
Yeah. Loveland's
I can't see the top. I'm pretty sure.
Because it's just you're missing McCaffrey and Genti.
You could have went Loveland, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who's there, but
no Tyler Conklin love from you? That was the prime spot for you to pitch Tyler Conklin, as you always do. Where's your Tyler Conklin? Brian, Tyler Conklin pays Terp to hype him up every show.
He's a serviceable tight end. I'm not sitting here saying he's a superstar, but he's.
I'll give you the guy. Super late, and again, Syracuse homer over here. Arande Gadsden.
I just drafted him in the
round
best ball the other day.
19 or 20. Gadsden's going to be that seam stretching. By the middle of the season, he'll be the starting tight end for the Chuck.
Gesicki, Freiermuth, Mason Taylor, Kate Auden, Chigakonku, Waller are some of the tight end names in this kind of joking. Weird
people are drafting Waller.
Yeah,
people think Waller's going to be a thing. I don't think he makes it out of training camp.
First off, let's not disrespect noted and distinguished rapper Darren Waller on his second career making the NFL. I don't know. Part of me just feels as though the Giants were just such a shitty fit, and Darren Waller, maybe a year off, he comes back. I mean, and it's not apples to apples comparison, but I've seen a lot of tweets that I'm based on, but like, we saw Gronk come off a year of retirement and we find like, why can't Darren Waller? Like, is Darren Waller that much
hamstrings
worse than
are
Smith?
so bad? And now you're telling
But
me,
he had a
I know
year
he's running
off.
Spartan races or whatever he's doing out there in the streets, but
It's not the same, not even close.
not even the same. Like, that's why I think he's going to get into camp and he's going to pull his hamstring like he always does. And then it's going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what, guys? I can't do this. And he'll limp around for the whole season. Don't draft Darren Waller.
No, I'm with you. No chance. I mean, it's just there's no upside there at all. People are going to try to find the next Jonnu Smith, but he's not it.
I just want to say, Faye in the chat, I'm assuming he's in drafting team 5 here. He just wants to say he's not. I think if I'm reading right, let me go back. He wasn't a huge fan of Godwin, but he did take him to the tournament format. So there's at least some clarification.
Hey.
And again, it's also like, I mean, this is where Godwin's been going. It's not as though like you reached. Like,
it's not a reach. It's not. I mean,
it's not.
Whether you like him or you're not, like it's a fine where he's being drafted. It's just certain players like. He will be one player that I'll probably have 0% of. And if it kills me, it kills me. But I just can't see a world where it does, especially with guys being drafted around him, which we talked about.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, and then I got a question for you.
Team 6, okay? And this may be a guy that followed me on Twitter today. He was in the draft. But I want to ask you guys from a team-building perspective in these FFPC formats. Drafting, what do you get? 7 players, running back and receivers, then going back-to-back tight end in 8 and 9, and then 3 straight quarterbacks. So there's 5 straight picks of just tight ends and quarterbacks. What do you guys think of builds like that? Because again, none of them are elite at this point.
No.
So, I mean,
but the build's great. To me, the build's very good. I love
Trevor
personally.
Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy. He's probably my favorite quarterback that's late this year, all things considered, versus him and Dak. You stack him with Travis Hunter, which is always something that excites me. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams by himself, I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I would have to get something in there to mix in.
And he's
kind of limited.
CD, Henry, T. Higgins were his first 3 rounds.
Yeah, you eliminate yourself from Burrow. You missed out on Prescott. I get that. Metcalf, I'm probably gonna take Aaron Rodgers instead of I don't love Aaron Rodgers at all. I mean, let me get that out of the way right now. But Tua by himself, like if a Tua team makes it to the finals or makes it to the semifinals, a Tua team's almost guaranteed to have Tyreek or Waddle. Almost guaranteed. So if Tua goes nuts. You're trying to play catch up. That's just always been.
Just wait until he takes Darren Waller here, and then
that's possible. Or maybe a Malik Washington or Braxton Berrios or one of those heroes. That's fine. But if you have Tua with A-Chain, all right, I get that. That makes sense.
There's just Tua here. I'm just saying. He
has no rushing ability. Caleb Williams, he says a little bit of rushing ability that could maybe offset some of the Maybe it's a Luther Burden week who nobody has him. And it's not DJ Moore or Roma Dunze or Loveland. So
the Caleb Williams pick to a degree feels as
what's
that was a little bit of shit. I was really aiming for Dak there to stack with CD and Ferguson. It just didn't fall to me.
I would have took JJ McCarthy to go with Aaron Jones. It's not what normally people do, but it also gives you like some deep options with Jalen Naylor later to try to get a little creative and like get something that's a little outside the box. I just feel like Caleb Williams is a little bit of a panic pick, obviously, and that's okay. It happens. Everybody has panic picks here and there, especially when they have something so perfectly set up like he did. And, Prescott would have made his team just nasty. If you would have told me you put Prescott and flip him with Caleb Williams and then, take Trevor Lawrence and Tua, he probably doesn't even have to take Tua then. It just makes his team even better. That team with Dak Prescott might be the best team in the draft.
Question for you, Brian, from Bill Hollywood. It was a bit ago. He wanted to know, from the 9th round through the 11th round, who is your favorite running back in that range?
All right. Let's see. So we've got ETN, no. Warren, no. Scatterboot, no. Trace. That's going to be a wild situation here. 2 kind of mediocre running backs on bad teams.
Whoa, is Tracy a mediocre running back? I don't think so. I think Tyron Tracy's a good running back. I
had a lot of Tracy last year. We got him off waiver wires and all that. He never really gave you the big blow up game. He was just kind of he's like an RB3. So let me see who else got taken here. Spears, Garendo, Javante. Jesus Christ, this is a bad crew. I'm gonna say, and it went through 12. My favorite of all. I mean, this is a reach here, but who's going to have the most opportunity? It may be, and this is going to sound really boomerish. What about J.K. Dobbins in Denver? Like, there was talk that before free agency and before the draft, they were already in talks with J.K. Dobbins. They said, we're going to sign you. We're going to bring you in. Like, do we think R.J. Harvey is going to come in there and protect the quarterback on passing downs? Probably not.
Biggest question.
We know J.K. Dobbins is good. We know he can do that.
And R.J. Harvey is he's small. He's not a workhouse back regardless of pass protection concerns, J.K. Dobbins looking good last year is generally one of the most astonishing things I think I've seen in fantasy football.
I agree.
Like, I'll take that. Like, I thought he was
the league winner before he got hurt.
And he looked great. And, we see when Sean Payton does with running backs, they clearly prioritized him. I thought his ADP would rise more than it did. It was in the 14th round when he was unsigned. I thought he would get into maybe even like top 10 rounds, but he's kind of hesitated here. Like, I agree with that. I think he's arguably better. I like Tracy. I am a Tracy believer. So like from round 9, ETN probably over him, but like Dobbins, you could argue over pretty much like every name for me, like through
Charbonnet's the best name. But you have
Charbonnet's
a league winner if Kenneth Walker gets back.
Yeah, which he will.
What about Najee Harris? I mean, they took Hampton in the first round, but it was the same story. I mean, is he a great player? No, but
he's gonna be fine. He's gonna
get touched.
Good. He's not gonna be great.
I have a question though. Like it's also just Elijah sickening to talking through this shit. Like Sam Darnold fell to him. I'm just insane. Anyway, Najee Harris, I want to ask you this, like in a best ball format, like he doesn't have spike weeks. He kind of needs to fall in the end zone because he's just going to do like his 65.
I don't think he hurts you. I'm not a Najee Harris.
Right. I'm saying, I don't want him as like my top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But he's not going to hurt you.
If you could get him, let's say, okay, he went at the end of the 9th round. What if you, and I don't know what his ADP is here. Sorry, Mojo. I'll see you in a few weeks. But what if you got Najee Harris like in the 11th round? Now you're like, hell yeah. All right. That's fantastic.
100%.
Yeah. Because Najee Harris could very well be like morph into at some point in his career, he's going to be the I'm blanking on the name. It was Gus Edwards. It was who was the guy in the Lions who had 18 touchdowns 1 year?
Jamal Williams.
Like Najee Harris is built for that 1 year of just having 20 touchdowns on horrible efficiency.
He's not there yet, but he can get there.
He's going to get there at some point in his career. Like that's going to be who it is.
Jordan Mason is also another name that was just brought up in the chat. If you are a believer that Aaron Jones is going to break down a little bit, Jordan Mason did show flashes. He was, before he got hurt last year, he was a great pickup, for people who drafted him. He was on a couple of my teams and was just killing it for a while. And then obviously got banged up and everything just kind of went haywire after that. I'm a Tyrone Tracy guy. So I'm going to stay on that. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to get crazy with it, but he's definitely going to be a guy that I'm higher owned than the most. Spears is a guy who's fine. There's paths that he can get there. Garendo, if you're not believing in CMC this year, you should be every team. If you're fading CMC, you should be drafting all their backups. Garendo, whoever is there that you think could be potentially. That's the mistake I think a lot of people make. If they're like, yeah, I'm fading McCaffrey or I'm fading Barkley. All right, you're fading Barkley, that's fine. You should be drafting Will Shipley a ton or AJ Dillon.
Right.
That's who you should be drafting.
I think Andrew Cooper says it best. Like he always says, it's like, well, if you think this is going to happen, you need to think, well, what is the impact of that? And draft.
If you're not a believer in R.J. Harvey, you should be hitting J.K. Dobbins at 60% in the 10th round. Why not? You're not losing anything.
Guys, real quick, 13th through 14th round, there was a run of Rashid Shaheed, Rashad Bateman, Marvin Mims, and Hollywood Brown, which just feels like the most classic like best ball spike week players.
Yeah.
Terp, it looks like we lost Brian for a minute. I was worried. Okay, well, you're a Bateman guy. But so
Let's eliminate Bateman out of there.
We're not ranked the 4 of them. So Bateman's 1.
Okay. So you said Mims, Bateman.
Between Shaheed, Mims, Bateman, and Hollywood Brown.
Okay. So I would probably lean, best ball, it would go Bateman, Mims, Shaheed, Brown.
Okay.
You saw what Mims did. And people that had Marvin Mims on their team by accident in the fantasy playoffs. Yeah, that was just a dream come true, all things considered. After not doing much all season, has been always the popular pick and all that stuff. Shaheed, in my opinion, which is not, I drafted a ton of Bo Nix, and especially a ton of Bo Nix late, and I was not a Bo Nix supporter. But when quarterbacks are, to me, clear-cut starters, and, Spencer Rattler, we know how it's going to end up. He's not a very good quarterback. Tyler Shuck, they drafted him. I'm not sitting here saying Tyler Shuck is a superstar, but he's free in drafts. And if you're doing a 3 QB bill, which most people are doing these in these 20-round drafts, and if you're starting off, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, and Tyler Shuck is your third quarterback, you can do way worse. And you can stack anybody with Tyler Shuck outside of Chris Olave for pretty much free, whether it's Juwan Johnson, whether it's, Brandon Cooks, if you want to get ugly, or Shaheed. So, it just makes a ton of sense to just continue to do that if you have the opportunity.
I want to ask about Brian. Now you're back on Jalen Wright. Is it interesting because we were just talking about if this happens on A-Chain, gets a ton. He's so good when healthy, and obviously there's a Tua element, but part of it is Devon A-Chain just with his smaller build and the amount of touches that he's prone to breaking down. Like he is a guy who I would classify as injury prone. Does that, especially in best ball, we saw, Jalen Wright's ability because he has some insane breakaway speed as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you're drafting late in these best ball drafts, assuming you should be shooting for, these high upside lottery tickets that could produce spike weeks for you. Jalen Wright seems to fit the bill as that guy who could, with an injury to A-Chain, could fill a substantial role in a possibly powerful high scoring offense.
I would look up the rest of their depth chart, but I think having Our Lads open for half an hour crashed my computer because it's from the site's from 1982. But yeah, I was drafting a lot of Jalen Wright a year ago, and then he got hurt and it didn't really work out for me. But yeah, he's a talented kid, and they're going to use multiple backs in this offense. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Devon A-Chain is not going to get, 30 carries a week. That's just not how he's built. So somebody's going to get touches in this offense behind him, or alongside him, I should say. It's just now our job to figure out, all right, well, who's that going to be? Because in round 15, team 2 just got potentially a guy from the Miami Dolphins who could get 10 touches a week.
Mm-hmm. Terp, where are you at on Jalen Wright? Are you
one of my highest earned running backs?
Wow. Okay. I love that.
Where he's going, it's hard not to click the button. Look at some of these guys he's going around. I'm not drafting Tank Bigsby ever. Jarquez Hunter. Are we sure Blake Corum's not going to be the backup?
Right.
I was going to ask you.
Braylon Allen. What's Braylon Allen's ceiling? Let's just say something happens to Breece Hall. Are we sure Braylon Allen's going to be the guy? And even if he is the guy, are we excited about it? Tyler Algier. That's a different situation.
Kinda. I just want to butt in there. Kind of excited if Braylon Allen's the guy.
I'm not excited. The Jets, man. The Jets are going to be a Garrett Wilson. And yeah, there could be some, where I stand on Breece Hall.
Justin Fields throws it 20 yards over Garrett Wilson's head over and over again. That's what's going to happen.
With Justin Fields, it's hard to. He's just not. He's an okay quarterback. He could be a great fantasy quarterback, but overall, I don't know. I don't see it. But look at Marshawn Lloyd, who I loved last year and drafted a ton last year and got burned last year. To me, he's in the same situation with Jalen Wright. If he can stay healthy and if that could all figure out, and Josh Jacobs gets a little nicked up, Marshawn Lloyd has that talent. Roschon Johnson to me is just, he's a serviceable guy. He's never going to be the guy, even if DeAndre Swift stinks or gets hurt. Roschon Johnson's never going to be the it guy there. So
they just drafted that kid out of Rutgers. I've heard a lot of buzz about hey, again. My computer crashed. Don't watch.
You keep seeing these guys getting drafted, and we see the DJ Giddens and the Dylan Sampsons and all these guys who are getting drafted. They all have a little bit of excitement. You're going to see a whole in a couple weeks when training camp starts up. You're going to see a whole new group of guys getting drafted. Like the hot name in fantasy drafts right now is Deontay Thornton. Everybody's all juiced up about the. How many people actually knew who he was up until a couple weeks ago? A lot of people could raise their hands, say they did, but most people didn't. Now he's just starting to gradually move. Oh, he's playing with the number ones. He's this, he's that. You know, you got to watch out because for every, Puka Nacua, there's a Terrace Marshall.
I was about to bring up Terrace Marshall.
We know what Terrace Marshall a couple of years ago. I remember Terrace Marshall when that preseason, the hype, everything was there. He got as high as like 8th, 9th round in these drafts. And I was in one of my main events. I got sucked into that draft.
You took him in the 8th and 9th round.
And now I believe he's a Philadelphia Eagle.
Is he really? I didn't realize.
I believe he's on the depth chart. Yes.
He has a chance to be a water boy or something. But yes, you got to watch the preseason puff pieces and the preseason hype. You're going to see guys like Tyreek Hill already came out. He's starting to move up draft boards. Marvin Harrison getting a little hype. He's starting to move up draft boards.
Mm-hmm.
You got to watch the guys who are not getting hype.
Jameson Williams.
All my guys that I really like are getting moved up draft boards, and I don't like that. So I'm glad I got my shares early, but I'll still take them where they're getting drafted. But you also got to pay attention to the guys who aren't getting the hype, and that's not always a bad thing. Like a guy like DJ Moore, who is getting no hype whatsoever right now, zero. Who's literally like stuck in where he's getting drafted, if in some cases falling down. You got to pay attention to that stuff because what if DJ Moore is, St. Brown in that offense?
Stephon Diggs, who went in the 8th round in this draft.
Spot on.
Number one wide receiver on the team that everyone loves the quarterback. Everyone loves, hey, McDaniels is back, offensive coordinator. Like, all right, Stephon Diggs. Yeah, he's coming off the.
Brian said it perfectly earlier. What if Michael Pittman's a thing again?
Yeah.
Hey, Cardi B dumped Stephon Diggs, which means Stephon Diggs has only been hanging out with Drake May. So, his priorities are back locked in. So
again, hey, Cardi, I'll be off the stream in a minute, honey. Hang out. I'll be there.
But that's what you have to look for in these drafts because everybody gets sucked into the names who are just skyrocketing up draft boards. We see these guys who every year start as the 8th, 9th, 10th round draft pick, and they just continue to boom, 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 move up. And not always, but a lot of times they're just massive, massive traps. We've seen a couple years ago when Elijah Moore and got moved up. Everybody was on that hype train and it just crashed and burned. And there's plenty of guys who are in the same situation because you're going to see the hype. And once the hype gets crazy, a perfect hype guy could be this year, could be Trey Harris. And I'm not saying Trey Harris is a bad player.
I love Trey Harris.
I think he's a good player. No, I love Trey Harris. Good. But
I'm a believer.
All he needs is just a little bit of hype, and he can move up 2-3 rounds. Guys like that, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel.
It is crazy how
Matthew
much
Golden.
One bit of news it does truly. Even this is high stakes fantasy. These guys are playing for $300,000. And
people get caught up. They don't want to lose that guy.
Yeah.
The hype's real.
I loved seeing the all pre. I did it one year back before X's impressions have just nosedived and all that, where I was trying to put out some more content. It stinks. That's the marketing side of me coming out. And I remember I was doing posts and me and Terp collaborated the all preseason hype team for a couple years, which is always fun to do. Because for every of the list of 8, 9 guys we came up with, maybe one actually worked out. The other 8 are just the ultimate.
It's hard because it's hard not to get caught up in that.
Tyrion Davis Price, remember him? Philadelphia,
who was
Super Bowl champion
last year. Carson Steele was he's going to be the guy. He was a white fullback.
And then what about look at this round 14 that just finished a second ago? Here's a couple of guys so boring. Nobody gets excited when they collect Hollywood Brown, Adam Thielen, or Cedric Tillman. All 3 of those guys could have, 3-4 weeks in a best ball where they're helping
Tillman.
you.
And that's all you need.
I like the Tillman pick.
Love all 3 of those picks.
My friend Elijah finally popped in the chat and said, "Boom, there's your stack," because he took Xavier Legette to pair with Bryce Young. That aside, I kind of like the
Panthers. Should have took Tavian Sanders. That would have made much more of a sense than Xavier Legette.
I like the Panthers' offense. I'm a big
I think they can win the division personally.
Bryce Young really turned it on. I'm a believer in that coaching staff and their track record. What Canales has done between Baker, by what he did with Geno, then what he did in the second half. I like who they're who they've drafted, I'm personally like McMillan. I like their running back room. Chuba and Dowdle, I think, are two good backs. I was never an Xavier Legette guy, but now it's your number 2, and then you have, Adam Thielen, who's still chugging along. I think that Panthers offense is one where the values are still largely very depressed outside of maybe McMillan and Chuba, who are a 5th round. But there's some guys on the team, especially in best ball. I think the Panthers could be in for some big offensive weeks. I don't know. And just say that's just my
Bryce Young's next 300-yard game will be his first. Everyone talks about those great weeks he had at the end of the year. I mean, one of it was propped up by 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, some of it was smoke and mirrors nonsense too. I mean, he's still 5'3" running around out there. So
he's never going to set the world on fire.
Yeah. How much of it is Bryce Young? And this is always the question. Me and my friends always discuss it. Terp, I've talked about it with you. And this is more of a general football philosophy. How much of a quarterback, let's say Bryce Young, who was uber successful in college, despite his size, playing in the SEC with a massive O-line in front of him, how much of his struggles can be deemed to poor coaching and situation versus just, he's not good? Where's that line blur for you guys? Because I have a sneeze coming. Excuse me. But I just think it's just a very interesting thing because I obviously this is the prove-it year for Bryce Young, but I just refuse to believe after watching him all those years at Alabama that he's not a good quarterback. I tend to believe that the constant coaching staff turnover and the shitty coaching.
I think he's a good quarterback. I just don't think he's a great quarterback, and I don't think he ever will be a great quarterback. He is
if CJ Stroud went there, is CJ Stroud we talking about him? He wouldn't have been good either. CJ Stroud would have been terrible his rookie year.
I'm not the biggest CJ Stroud fan as it is. I don't think he's as good as his rookie season showed. I think he's more like his last season. That's just my opinion.
But their offensive line was horrible.
It was. That's fair. That's
he
a fair
lost
point.
Diggs. He lost Tank Dell. Tank Dell was struggling to start, and then he got hurt.
Their offensive line is going to be even worse this year. They've lost 3 guys off it.
Nico Collins missed 5 games, so it's not. And I think his ADP is reflective. This was CJ Stroud was QB 5-6 last year, and now he's 20, which is about probably where he should.
He's got a real offensive coordinator this year. That was a joke last season. But
do you guys? Speaking of preseason risers, Brian, what are your thoughts on
Callaway? Man,
I was going to Marquise Callaway.
There's a name. Jesus, I think I got caught up in that hype too.
Have you guys? Before I ask about Pat Bryant, have you guys seen this trend that when you go on a plane Turk, when you're going, me and you are flying out to Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just get a pen and paper and you write down as many athletes as you possibly can name over the entirety of your flight and just see how many you can get.
No.
Fine.
Do they not serve drinks on your flight?
I was going to say that sounds absolutely miserable.
Fine. I thought I saw
raw dogging it. You're just watching
I saw it online. The guy named 5,123 athletes, and I thought that was sick. But clearly, I'm.
Can you show me a picture of this guy? Because he's probably
it's Dana Beers from Barstool.
I like Dana Beers. He's a good dude. Just got married. Really funny dude. But that sounds miserable.
Or to circle back to earlier in the show, you could do what Michelle Tafoya does, make up fake notes that the stewardess handed you, and then tweet them, and then try to retweet them like it's something new 2 years later. That's what other people do.
What's Michelle Tafoya even up to? Is she even doing anything anymore?
Oh, my God. That's just embarrassing.
Most of it.
Brian, I got to ask you. We were talking about preseason riders. Pat Bryant's a guy getting some buzz, in Denver. I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on him. Are you a believer in him? And is the Sean Payton buzz there for real? Because Sean Payton's one of those coaches. I feel like every coach is like that, but I feel like when Sean Payton hypes up a guy, fantasy community just fixates on it and just runs with it.
Marvin Mims, little Jordan Humphrey. We got to get him the ball. All these guys.
Troy Franklin.
There's a lot of guys. Yeah, Troy Franklin was actually, good in college with his current quarterback. So I don't put any stock into that. But the only thing I will say, when you look at that Denver team, when the season gets rocking and rolling, their number 1 wide receiver is over 30 years old and their tight end's over 30 years old. So, it wouldn't be crazy if either of those guys kind of pull up lame at some point. But, I don't know enough about Pat Bryant. I'm not going to sit here and say I watched a million of his games, but anybody, if you're getting snaps, you got a chance. But there's so many dudes out there in Denver. They're going to spread it around.
I agree.
It's the same as Buffalo and the same as, how many other teams we talked about where it's just they're mixing and matching.
Evan Ingram. I'll mix in some Pat Bryant late, some Marvin Mims late, but I don't know if I'll have that much Sutton personally. I think he's okay. I think it's, obviously,
he went in the 5th round today. Feels a little bit.
Yeah, I'm passing in the 5th round. I mean, I've always been a Cortland Sutton fan, but not there. I think it's just a little, there's guys around him I like better.
Brian, I don't know if you saw, we had someone in the chat say that you're the best guest we've had on. So you've got a worst guest and a best guest. We've never had someone have such dueling.
Well, what do you think Cardi B's doing while she's waiting for me? She's upstairs on the laptop watching the stream.
So that would be the highlight of my life. Is getting
making Ilio's pizza. We'll be
out of nowhere. Just Cardi B starts commenting you fade Stephon Diggs, fade him. Whoa, Jesus Christ. Oh boy,
we're in like the 18th round here. We're
getting dark here.
We're in the 17th round.
Russell Wilson's getting drafted.
Jackson.
Sean was asking for some roster reviews. We can do that. That'll keep.
I like this.
I do want to
got drafted here.
I was about to say my one question was, what's
I keep drafting him too. It's hard not to.
Wow, boys, Steve G from the top row.
Steve,
that's insane.
I need somebody to vouch for that story. I was going to say so many.
Cardi, come down. Do you know Steve G in the chat?
That's what she did in the Bronx before she blew up as a rapper.
Steve. That's respect, Steve.
That is.
You guys will be in Vegas in a few weeks. I mean,
we could probably see a lot of people look like Cardi B, just a lot, less than the bank account.
I went to Vegas for my bachelor party years and years ago. Spearmint Rhino. And we had more fun talking to the guys who worked at the strip club and the off-duty dancers. It's these guys they'll tell you every
stories they can tell you just literally they're non-believable, but they're all true.
Oh, that's the best. Just
those are guys. Get those guys on a podcast.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I don't know if you guys would, I always do respect regardless. I am a fan of his community, but Theo Von will have on,
so good.
Trump and Bernie Sanders, and then Timothy Chalamet, and then literally a random garbage truck driver from New York.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he does it. And I'm he needs to get one of those guys on, because I can only imagine the stories from high, top, famous Vegas strip clubs. That's
your boy is definitely listening to this show. He just took Sanders. He's definitely listening. I mean,
we always talk if Kelsey breaks down. I like what I see from Noah. I love especially in the best ball, taking a final couple round pick on Noah.
You could do it way worse in the 19th, 18th, whatever, 20th round than taking a guy like Noah Gray.
Yeah.
How about Darius Slayton in the 18th round?
He's going to play.
DeAndre Hopkins went in the 17th, and that was kind of crazy to me. DeAndre Hopkins, I should have retired. Pulled a Avonte
retired
Davis.
in the third quarter of the Super Bowl. You didn't see that?
No, I was saying after he dropped the pass, DeAndre Hopkins, who had some of the most sure hands of any receiver in my lifetime, wide open across the middle. Chiefs down probably 21-0 at that point, trying to make a late score, and DeAndre Hopkins just boom, and I'm just you're done, dude.
He did score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, so we'll give him that.
Crazy.
Did he really?
He did.
I thought it was all worthy. Yeah. I turned off the Super Bowl. I was frustrated.
I literally just watched
I told you not to hedge too, but you did it anyway.
I did.
I watched the mic'd up version literally 2 days ago with my kids. Laying in bed. What should we watch?
There's nothing better.
Yanks blew another games, but the Super Bowl back up.
Oh, dude, don't get me started on the Yanks. There's nothing better than when you're going into a season with, you're the defending champ. And I talk to my friends because I went to school in Philly. So all my friends are Eagles fans. My friend drafting here is from high school. So he's a Pats fan. But, and they say sometimes, tough day at work. And even now I'll just sit back and be but my team won the fucking Super Bowl.
The Eagles have been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, and they've won 2 of the last 8. It doesn't matter. They could win 4 games next year. I don't care. I still have confetti in a case over here. I got the mock ring. I got autograph stuff on a wall.
All the above.
Doesn't matter. I don't care. Go
Well,
talk to a
Steve said
Bills fan.
she
They'd cut their
performed
arm
at-
off for one of this.
Steve said she performed
Go
at
take
my
that,
nightclub. So Steve owns a nightclub.
I feel like Steve should be the guest next week.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. We need to get Steve. We should just go live
Joe
to
King
Steve's
saying
nightclub.
Ryan facing the wrong way at the club.
Jeez.
We were out of money at that point.
I do want to ask real quick, Brian, you mentioned that you like Keenan Allen getting drafted. Like, what's your
Sure.
ideal landing spot for him? Do you have like a couple of mine? Like, oh, if he signs there, I would love that.
Well, again, he's a pure slot,
Mhm.
so he's got to play there. I mean, you know where he could go, and maybe it would help out, but it would crush our guy Calvin Ridley if he went to Tennessee. But isn't that where all old receivers go to die?
All receivers go to die.
In Tennessee?
Julio, Robert Woods.
I think he
Tyler
wants to
Moss.
stay on the West Coast. He doesn't want to go play for the Jets or anything. So if he
Going
stays
back to the
someone-
Chargers
some-
make a ton of sense.
Someone put in the chat.
It won't
Keenan
happen,
Allen to
but-
Miami, and I was like checking my phone, like, oh,
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool for
Not
that program. I don't
terrible.
know what he was talking about.
what if he
Keenan
goes to
Allen
the Cardinals?
Buffalo. Cardinals is another good one.
I mean, for an NFL standpoint, I'm trying to think like, yeah, that would be a great spot. You know where he'll end up going? Seattle. They need another slot
49ers.
receiver.
49ers is in a terrible spot if like Ayuk's not ready to come back. Like here's
Is Keenan Allen just waiting for like training camp injuries?
My
to
guess
happen?
is why Amari Cooper's probably doing the same thing. Like man, Amari Cooper.
I got a spot, Keenan Allen. Philadelphia. Come take the veteran minimum. Come be our third
Hey.
receiver instead of Jahan Dotson.
I don't think that's going to happen. I like that though.
Jalen Miller are getting drafted. Obviously, this is the first
That's
best ball
silly.
tournament.
That's.
Do you think it's silly, or do you think
It's
there's any
just-
smart there?
There's if Jalen Miller plays this year, the only reason he plays is because Darnold gets hurt. He's not ready.
I love that pick. Oh, Gadsden goes.
I want to answer a question real quick. AJ, put
There
in
was
the
a
chat.
yeah.
Yeah,
there
throw
was
that
a
up real
question
quick.
while we were talking about strip clubs, please.
So I agree with 100% what you're saying, especially now. Like I'm not a Sutton guy, I'm not a Monty guy, but like in these drafts right now, be unique, mix in guys. August is when you're going to start just my guy. You know, you're not really as worried about like trying to be different on your build. You're going to get more of your exposures on guys that you really really love, just because you like clicking them. So yeah, I have no problem doing it now. You know, Sutton in some drafts are going to fall. Montgomery in some drafts are going to fall. And if you could pick up that value compared to where he's being drafted, you know, based off ADP and based off Mojo, no issues with that at all. In a main event or like a gorilla or something like that, yeah, I'm not doing that no matter pretty much ever. But best ball is totally different. I mean, you want to get your exposures up. It's hard if this goes 0% on a guy in best ball because we've seen it over years after years. Like if you faded Saquon Barkley last year, you were in trouble. If you faded Derrick Henry last year, you were in trouble. And you saw Derrick Henry fall to like the 4th round in some drafts last year. I remember drafting him. I remember passing on him in the 4th round in some drafts. And it's a disaster. Like
And
you
Henry
just don't wanna
dropped
get
even
caught.
more after the opening Thursday game.
You don't want to get caught doing that because like you always should have some exposure, whether it's 2%, 3%. Like full fades in best ball can get you in a lot of trouble, especially in the top half. Like there's years when I just like I'm going to fade this guy, and if that guy hits, you're as close to drawing dead because the guys around him usually are close or not anywhere in that range. So you're behind the 8 ball before you even begin.
I've been fading Derrick Henry for like the last 3 seasons, and
I'm going to fade him again this year.
Do it again.
Groupie
Because one year I'm going to be fucking right. Also, I just want to
I'll
shout
have
out
some, but
Team 3 with I think Brian, you were or Terp, you were mentioning with like if you're not a believer in CMC, you should be Hammer Grindo. He also follows it up with Jordan James. So I'm assuming that's a guy who's not buying into CMC's health and wants both kind of.
It's a good bet to take. I mean, you saw it last year work out with Garendo and Mason in small, doses, and you definitely got some weeks there that could have really helped you in certain spots. At the end of the season, they were both zeros, but I mean, that's the risk you take in certain situations. If you're betting against this, like Andrew Cooper when he was on said it perfectly. If you don't like a certain player and you're like, yeah, I'm not drafting that guy, you should be drafting the guys around him because you're telling yourself a story that if it happens, you should be sitting with a gold mine. Like if you're not a James Conner believer, you should be hitting Trey Benson every single
13th
draft.
round, by the way, which
13th
seems like
round.
really good value.
I saw some pieces come out on Trey Benson on Twitter the last couple of days, and I want him to be quiet because I've been trying to get as much Trey Benson as possible because where he's being drafted makes a ton of sense. Like again, if you're betting against a certain player, you should be drafting the other player. That's just the truth. I mean, if you don't do that, then you're kind of, what are you fading the guy for? If you either think he's going to get hurt or you think he's going to be down. If he's going to be down, you want the other guys around him. It just makes too much sense.
And just going back to the always wonderful like preseason risers of the past, Ben Sinnott. Theo Greminger, your guy, Brian, was leading the charge on Ben Sinnott, and I got all wrapped up in it.
Tell the stories. Ferguson, Sinnott, Gadsden, tell the stories.
I want to ask, Brian, real quick. Team 7, Mason Taylor in the 14th round or Terrence Ferguson here in the 19th. Out of those two rookie tight ends at those respective prices, which one do you prefer?
I mean, listen. Well, I mean, if you talk about what price do you want, Terrence Ferguson, I mean, he's a guy who could he start day one for the Rams? Maybe when you see all these pieces that come out on social media.
Round one. They were taking him.
I mean,
round
they
one
were talking about how much they love this kid, how athletic he was. I believe he was out of Oregon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting a starting tight end in round 19
on that offense,
that offense, and we've seen some of the spike weeks that tight ends can put up in that offense. Why not? And again, it's not like Devontae Adams, who's their first and or second option right now. It's not like he is any spring chicken. What is he, like 48 years old at this point? Who's to say he holds up all year? And they got a whole lot of nothing behind him. So yeah, I like Terrence Ferguson, 19th round. I don't know how he slipped that far. How are you taking Darren Waller over a guy like that? Or I mean,
for the record, I actually am the minority between you two. I like the Darren Waller and Ben Sinnott double tap there in France 18-19. I think that's a nice upside. Do you guys?
How are you taking Harold Fannin? Like, I mean, David Njoku's a boss. Like,
yeah. Why did they even draft Fannin?
You guys this is like really niche. Are you guys at all familiar with Bill Simmons' reaction when Anthony Bennett got drafted? When he just goes, "Whoa!" Like when that's how I feel seeing Shedeur Sanders go on the board here over Joe Flacco. Like, you're in a best ball tournament, right? Joe Flacco very well could be a 20th round quarterback who wins you a couple weeks because he's just going to be chucking the ball around. Like, you took Deontay. Why are we drafting Shedeur Sanders? Even if he's starting, even if he's starting, he's not putting up any numbers. I'm shocked.
This guy, he also has CJ Stroud. Who are his other quarterbacks? Because
I can go tell you. Let's do some roster reviews.
You're looking at the playoff weeks. Like, is Shedeur Sanders going to be your starting quarterback?
That team could be drawn dead at the quarterback position very quickly. That's what sucks, because it has a good roster. It's not a bad roster to build. Getting the guys he got, but you have Fields, Stroud, and Shedeur Sanders. You better hope Justin Fields is a superstar, because if not, your team's dead.
Browns playoff schedule at the Bears. Do you know how much money the Bears put into that defense over the last few years?
Mm-hmm.
Then home for Buffalo and Pittsburgh in the fantasy championship game. Good luck.
Yuck. Yeah, yuck.
But I mean that. Like, if you're taking a 23rd round flyer on a Browns quarterback, take Flacco. That's fine. He could win you a couple early weeks in the season. I mean, we've seen him throw for 400 yards with Judy and Njoku. And
who knows? Maybe, they play him for 5 weeks. Somebody gets hurt elsewhere in the league, and they trade Flacco.
Yeah,
and they go, hell, give us a 6th round pick for him, and then we'll start Sanders or any of these other clowns we got there.
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett, by the way, on the team.
Scared.
Guys, let's do some roster reviews as Sean requested a bit. I know the stickers are small, and we're only through seeing 14 rounds, but it will have to do. Any teams catching your guys' attention?
Team 1 is my favorite. Team 7 is also one of my favorites. Let me see if I can find a third.
I got to move this to another screen here. Jeez Louise, these are tiny.
We've been tweaking our draft board here at FFPC and adding all these features that have been requested, but in doing so, it shrinks the board a little bit because people wanted, the pick number, they wanted the round and pick, they wanted the team and the buy. So stickers are getting a little crowded.
And make sure you use code YouTube25 to save $25 off your first FFPC team, folks.
And I must say,
it's team 1 and 7 for me.
Position count summary there at the top. If you want to see all these teams.
Oh, very nice.
That helps.
Listen, why not?
I don't really like any other team besides team 1 and 7. If I had to pick a third, it would be team.
You don't have to pick. Where did this idea come that you have to pick a third team? Just say 1 and 7.
I don't know. It's team 7. Team 1 is my favorite, probably by a good margin. Team 7, I like the build. Would have changed a couple things here and there. I don't see who's the second quarterback. Bo Nix, and then who?
For Team 7, they have Bo Nix, and then they have Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson. So
that's tricky. Never mind. I'm going to take that back. I'm just going to say Team 1 is leaps and bounds better than everybody else.
Okay.
Team 7 is a really, really good roster. The question is just the quarterbacks, and Bo Nix has to be perfect because, like he said in the chat, he just chimed in. I'm pretty sure that's him.
Mm-hmm.
His roster is really, really talented, but if you make a mistake like he made at the quarterback, Russell Wilson has to start a lot of games. Daniel Jones has to be, somehow the old Giants superstar. If not, like you're just going to be behind the 8 ball so much at the quarterback position.
Giants superstar. When was Daniel Jones?
That 1 year. That 1 year.
Yeah, they've left into 11 wins, and then the Eagles absolutely just.
I tweeted the other day. Daniel Jones controls so many fantasy players this year.
Yeah,
nobody wants Anthony Richardson. Nobody. People could say they want him. They're lying.
He went before Daniel Jones in this draft.
He did.
Daniel Jones.
I don't mind Team 5, by the way. I don't hate that team. I know we talked about all the Godwin hate, but everything else, I don't mind
Team 5 either. Taking that back,
I was trying to get on board with Team 4 because I'm liking where it started here. I mean, they got a ton of good running backs early with Gibbs, Jacobs, Kamara. You got Lamar on there, but there's just not enough at the wide receiver position for me.
And the tight ends are good. I like the tight ends with Andrews and Kraft.
Maybe if some of these guys hit late, Pittman becomes a stud.
Let me go look at this. They draft Hopkins and
Adam
Tolbert.
Thielen, Hopkins, Tolbert. That's barf. I mean,
never mind.
Yeah, it's to me. Team 1 is leaps and bounds better than everybody else.
Who like 5? I'm looking at Team.
And I love Bo Nix. I said he was naked early on when I said that we were looking for stacks for me to pick apart. He has Evan Ingram, so I take that back. If he would have just made a little bit better of pick a quarterback as a second quarterback, I would put him right up there. But
what about Team 10? Team 9. McBride, Collins, Adams, Hurts, Connor, Pickens, and then he followed up with Dak.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't mind that.
Jordan Mason. I've been outspoken with the Hurts stuff, but still, I put them up there. I agree. I probably put them as the second best team. Looking,
I like it. Like even Corum in the 20th round. Like
why not?
Keaton Mitchell,
Mario Douglas.
I like Team 9 and Team 1.
Yeah.
Imagine if King Henry goes down, and I think he has Keaton Mitchell, right?
Yeah,
on this team. So I mean, you're taking shots on high impact situations that if it hits,
they could hit. I like Team 9, and he recovered from missing on Smith. BC stacked Pickens and Dak, and I'm fine with the naked Hurts.
And your boy who picked 12, we'll talk about him real quick. His
had a great start.
Very good. Nothing negative to say about that. Quarterback room, fine, whatever. It worked out. The receiving room is where, and the tight end room is where it's lacking. I mean, JSN has to be a stud. Jacoby Myers is going to be good. He's going to be great. I don't think so. Stephon Diggs has to be great. Cooper Kupp, Dusty, Marvin Mims, inconsistent. Leggett, McLeod. I don't see it. I mean, his tight end room, I like some of the guys he drafted with Sanders. I like, Noah Gray. Don't really like Chig. I don't really like Kate Otten that much.
I'll say this: he did not have a horrible draft. He's not coming in here and embarrassing our friend.
He's top 5. I probably say he's top 5.
I like his build.
I think there's a big drop off after the top 3, but that's not saying he did terrible.
I don't hate it. I would have gone Darnold and just banked on kind of praying that Kupp stays healthy and that Kubiak does.
Drake May thing kind of messed him all up.
I do think I'm going to intrigued to see. I'll see if he texts me. If he's watching, I am very intrigued to see if Drake May, he is not. If Drake May, it was his strategy. He was texting me all day about it. Like, he loves Drake May. So I'm wondering how much that threw him off.
I'm looking more and more. I like this Team 6.
CD,
I think it's very balanced. You've got CD, T. Higgins, Metcalf, Hunter, Hollywood Brown in the 14th round.
James, who everybody hates this year. Nobody.
Braylon Allen and Pat Bryant, I like.
Eckler, a guy like Eckler in a league like this is going to have a couple of weeks where he makes your lineup. He just is. Especially nobody loves Brian Robinson on that team.
Nobody.
So what if all of a sudden they got to throw a little more? Eckler stays healthy, he catches a bunch of checkdowns. He's not a zero at the goal line. Yeah, not the worst.
I'll say this about this draft. There's a lot of teams I like. I don't know if I love any of the teams besides maybe 1 and 9 or like my top 2. That makes sense. Like which honestly usually means that it was overall a good room, because if there's a lot of teams you like, you don't love, it means that it was pretty kind of solid all around. Brian,
there's one question before he gets out.
Real quick. Please. I missed the question.
Yeah. What's Cardi B wearing right now?
You keep that one to yourself.
I'll DM you later.
The 3 QB build thing. So if you're taking a guy in the top 5 rounds, like if you're taking Daniels, Burrow, Hurts, Lamar or Allen, I'm probably only taking 2 quarterbacks. It's just you're banking on those guys. You're taking them early. You're taking the capital that comes with them. Right. But the one thing with that is I'm taking a guy that's really, really secure as my second guy. I'm not going to go Lamar and then take Daniel Jones. I'm not going to take Lamar and then take, Sam Darnold. Like I'm going to take like a guy like a Brock Purdy or like a Michael Penix or a guy that I know that he's not getting benched. There's no questions whatsoever. He's the guy. There's no any potential of him not playing. Could Darnold get benched? You could tell that story. Daniel Jones, yes. Like look at all these guys that are going later, like the Giants guys, like Barf. Like
Jared Goff.
Cam, if you're going to tell me I'm going to start with Josh Allen and I think a Cam Ward, I'm fine with that. It makes sense. Cam Ward's never coming out. Matthew Stafford, obviously, but you got to build some stacks in there.
Purdy, the name you said there is Purdy. Purdy goes way too late in these leagues. The team is going to be unbelievable. They're going to challenge for the NFC Championship. Yeah. Schedule in the playoffs is great. Tennessee at Indy and then home for Chicago. That's the quarterback right there is Brock Purdy.
Dak, Trevor Lawrence, 2 guys that we've mentioned a bunch. Would be thrilled with them as my number 2. If you could tell me I could walk out of drafts with Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott, or Jaden or Josh Allen and Dak Prescott, and then nobody else, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Oh, he wasn't locked in on Drake May, by the way.
Well, that's just silly. That's just you got to tell.
I don't know. He's a Patriots fan.
That just makes it even worse.
I'm just saying, Boston fan. You know how they be. Brian, pleasure as always. A wonderful show. Before you head out of here, please let the audience know where they can find you on social media, where they can find all your podcasts, your radio shows, and your articles. Please hit us with all that.
Yeah, so over on Twitter or Blue Sky, wherever you like to get your doom scrolling for the day, at Drake Fantasy. And then, the Fantasy Points podcast with my guy, the Guru, John Hansen. We didn't record one yet today. We'll see if we get one in tomorrow. They drop every morning. That's a lot of fun, man. John is like one of my heroes, and I grew up listening to him. And I grow up, Jesus Christ, I'll be 45 next month. But I've listened to John for so long, and to do a show with him every week is awesome because he's so much fun and laid back. So that's really a dream come true for me. And then just a lot of stuff over at fantasypoints.com, my articles, and we'll see what else I come up with. And you talked about my guy, Andrew Cooper. Coop and I are doing a live broadcast from the Pro Football Hall of Fame during the Fantasy Football Expo.
Wow.
We'll be breaking down the Kings Classic auction draft live as it happens. I get to draft in the snake, and then my partner takes over for the auction. So then I can just make fun of people.
I like that. I might be tuning in. There's not enough auction content out there on like YouTube and whatnot.
It's a different breed.
Listen to my guy Drew Davenport, the great Drew Davenport. If you want his
smart
show,
guy,
the auction,
extremely smart guy.
He pays me in natter days to say
that. Brian, that's dangerous right there.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous. Brian, we appreciate you having you on. Lovely as always, and we'll keep the Fantasy Points train rolling along. We have Theo Greminger on next week, 8:30 p.m. next Wednesday for a Big Gorilla live draft coverage. Also, I did mess up. I was supposed to shout out on Friday on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Uter are going to be.
I'll be there
doing a little
live
special
Big
live
Gorilla draft. Yeah.
I think there's like 6 or 7 spots left. So
I apologize to Balkman. He tries to get me on Thursdays, and I got my golf league, or I got to record with Hansen. I will come on with. I love him. I love the show. I'm coming on one time this year to be the worst guest that show has seen.
Well, you got the best guest and the worst guest, and you got a whole lot of love. I don't know if you saw for you.
We love
and
having
Guru's
you.
podcast. So there was multiple people were saying Guru was their first must follow analyst, and they tune into your guys' pod every week. Brian
Imagine
Drake,
if you could hear what he says off the air. It's even better.
Brian, we appreciate you having you on. We will be back next Wednesday for Big Gorilla live draft coverage, 8:30 p.m. So tune in there, subscribe, and everyone happy drafting. Thank you guys.
See you guys.